He had over 60 women in his emails, affairs running simultaneously, women from their own neighborhood, women they both called friends, meetings that took place in the wine bar he and his wife owned together, and in their own home. And when his wife Jenifer sat down at his laptop and started reading, she found that it had been going on from the very week of their wedding. Not after years of a struggling marriage. Not after things had fallen apart. From the very beginning. The man she had called her perfect husband had been living an entirely different life the entire time they were together, and the way Jenifer found out started with police at her front door. Jenifer Faison and Spencer Herron first met in college in Georgia in 1998. She was a young woman who knew exactly what she wanted from life, a career she cared about, a relationship built on real trust, a future that felt solid. Spencer felt like he could be that. He was charming without being showy, attentive in the way that feels genuine rather than performed, the kind of person who remembered small things you said weeks earlier and brought them back into conversation in a way that made you feel genuinely seen. They dated. Eventually, life pulled them in different directions, and they drifted apart. Jenifer built her career as a television producer. Spencer became a teacher, and for nearly 20 years, they didn't speak. Then they found each other online. And everything that had felt real the first time felt even more real the second time. They were older, more settled, more certain of what they wanted. They got married. They opened a wine bar together in their community. Jenifer continued her television career. Spencer taught video production at Kell High School in Marietta, Georgia. He was not just a good teacher, he was the teacher. Twice awarded Teacher of the Year in Cobb County. The kind of teacher parents specifically requested for their children. The kind students talked about years after graduation. The kind who stayed late, ran extra clubs, responded to messages, showed up to every school event. He also served occasionally in the Air National Guard. Respected, trusted, present.
Spence was the last person I ever would have guessed would have taken advantage of a kid, Jenifer said later. I think anybody else who knew him would have said the exact same thing. That was the whole point.
Her name was Rachel. She was 16 years old and Spencer Herron was her teacher. He had access to his students through private messages, through after-school clubs and activities, through the institutional trust that comes with being the most celebrated educator in the county. He used all of it. The grooming was gradual, the way it always is. Private messages that felt like mentorship. Special attention that felt like being recognized. A relationship that felt, at first, like someone important believed in her. And then, slowly, became something else entirely. The abuse started while Rachel was still his student. It continued for long enough that Rachel carried it alone, in a school where everyone celebrated her abuser, before she finally decided she had to tell someone. Going to the police meant going up against one of the most trusted men in her community. It meant knowing that people who loved Spencer Herron would question her story. It meant being a teenager, saying something that would make her life significantly harder. With no guarantee anyone would believe her, she went anyway. On June 1, 2018, while Jenifer was away on a work trip, police arrived at their home with a search warrant. Spencer Herron was arrested on charges of sexual assault of a student. Jenifer came home and found him standing in their living room holding the warrant. Police were already in the house.
I realized that afternoon that life as I knew it would never be the same, she said.
After Spencer's arrest, Jenifer went to his Facebook account to shut it down. What she found instead was the beginning of a discovery that would take her weeks to fully process and months to fully understand. Hundreds of photographs. She followed them to his email. She opened the inbox. She started scrolling. 60 women, not a handful, not a few mistakes over many years. 60 simultaneous affairs, some of them lasting years, running alongside his marriage to Jenifer the entire time. Some of the women were strangers he had found online. Some were women they both knew. Women who had been in their home. Women who had sat at their dinner table. Women who had worked alongside Jenifer and called themselves her friends. Jenifer started building timelines, charts, documents, trying to map the actual shape of the life her husband had been living alongside their marriage. And the further back she traced it, the worse it got. It went all the way back to the week they got married. Not a year in. Not after some turning point in their relationship. From the very first week.
Could it be true that this man I loved was a predator? The future that we planned was gone. And that was the last time I had seen him.
When Spencer Herron was arrested, the response in the community was not straightforward, because the community knew him, had trusted him, had given him awards and applause and access to their children for years, and when a teenager stood up and said what had happened to her. Some people did not want to believe it. He was Teacher of the Year. He coached, he mentored, he was at every school event. He was the last person anyone would have guessed. So some people guessed it wasn't true. Rachel sat through the doubt, the questions, the community she had grown up in looking at her differently for saying what she said. She kept going anyway. In January 2019, Spencer Herron stood in a Cobb County courtroom and pleaded guilty. 6 counts. During his sentencing, people from the community showed up to speak on his behalf. Teachers, former students, parents, people who still found it impossible to reconcile the man they had known with what he had done to Rachel. Spencer Herron was sentenced to 5 years in prison and 15 years of probation, required to register as a sex offender. Rachel was in that courtroom. She had been doubted and questioned and talked about in ways no teenager should have to endure. She sat through every word of the people who still defended him, and then she watched him be convicted of what he did to her. Jenifer Faison spent the months after Spencer's arrest doing something that most people in her position would not have had the strength to do. She investigated, meticulously, thoroughly. She contacted women, built timelines, gathered evidence of a secret life so extensive it would take months to fully map. And then she decided to tell it. Not just to people she knew, to everyone. She created a podcast called Betrayal and told the entire story. The marriage, the reconnection, the wine bar, the emails, the 60 women, the timeline that went back to their wedding week. Millions of people listened. The podcast was eventually adapted into a documentary series on Hulu. And in the final episode, Jenifer sat down with Rachel, the 2 women who had never expected to know each other, the wife and the student, both trying to understand the same person, both realizing that the version of Spencer Herron they had known, the charming, trusted, celebrated man, was completely real. He had not been performing goodness. He had built it deliberately, because the more people trusted him, the more access he had, and the safer he was. Spencer Herron was released from prison on parole in 2022. He lives in obscurity. Jenifer said she believes he will want to stay as far from her as possible, now that the full story is part of the public record. Rachel graduated from college in 2022. She continues to advocate publicly for survivors. She has said that coming forward, as hard as it was the right thing to do. Not just for herself, for every student in every classroom with a teacher who looks like Spencer Herron looked. Jenifer Faison has said she is still healing. That 4 years is not enough time to fully process what she found on that laptop. That the question she keeps coming back to is not how Spencer hid it, but how thoroughly she trusted him, and whether the 2 things were actually connected. Because the people who do this, the ones who maintain lives like this for years or decades, they are almost never the people who make you uneasy. They are the ones who make you feel more safe than you have ever felt. The awards, the mentoring, the remembering small details, the showing up to everything, all of it real. All of it also a wall between who they were and what they were doing. This is a documented true story. The mask always slips. It's just a matter of time. I'm Behind the Mask. See you in the next one.